Half in the bag. I put pizza rolls in my VCR so I could watch them on TV, but it didn't work.
Oh, hi, and welcome to Half in the Bag. I'm Jay.
And I'm Mike.
And we just saw the American Godzilla.
Both of them.
You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there.
Summer movie season is officially on. And you know what that means? It's time for another attempt at an American Godzilla movie. This one is in the more capable hands of some guy who made another movie, instead of Roland Emmerich, who's never made a real movie. This Godzilla is pretty much what you'd expect. It stars people who are involved with the plot. Jay? I know you were anticipating this new Godzilla film for quite some time based on its awesome trailer.
Yes.
What did you think of... Can we get this out of here? What did you think of Godzilla?
I didn't like it.
Really?
I would call it a disappointment, because I was really looking forward to it. Based on I don't think I saw the full trailer, but the teaser trailer was great, and based on the director's previous movie, I felt like the material was in capable hands. And I think from a directing standpoint and a visual standpoint, it was. But, well, I think it's safe to say it's better than the Roland Emmerich movie. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But all the human elements of this movie, ironically enough, felt very Roland Emmerich-y to me.
I know many of you have family and loved ones still in the city, and that you want to help them. Well, this is your chance.
While watching this movie, I began to think about such things. And we hate Roland Emmerich movies for that exact reason. And this did have a couple of little groaner moments in terms of dialogue and plot. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, I would like to see a Godzilla movie that stars nothing but nameless scientists in a laboratory yelling about how to stop Godzilla. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen in a Hollywood movie. You have to have that human connection. There was no wacky side character, acting stupid. No one said dumb lines. Like the Godzilla '98 is just terrible. It's like a cartoon show.
We should point out, we rewatched the '98 Godzilla with our friend Rich Evans, because he had never seen it before, and he just thought it was the best. But yeah, I agree with that. In rewatching that Godzilla, the Roland Emmerich one, like, I had forgotten that every single character in the entire movie is the comedy relief. Mm-hmm. You can't have a movie populated with nothing but like comic side characters.
Or characters that act like they're on Friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nobody was scared in that entire movie.
Yeah.
Don't you think we have enough already?
Yeah, that's good for me.
So I understand that with this new one, but like, do the characters have to be written so boring? What is Elizabeth Olsen? What is her character in this movie? She works in a hospital, and everybody ends up all the husband, the wife, and the kid. They all end up directly in the path of Godzilla at every perfect moment. It was all just too convenient.
And you keep telling everybody that this place is a death zone, but it's not. You're lying. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there.
I liked Bryan Cranston in this. I think probably a common complaint about this will be that he's not in it more.
The movie suffered from a severe lack of Bryan Cranston.
Because he not only is a really great actor, but his character was interesting, more so than the son. And so the point in the movie when I realized that we were going to shift focus from him to this boring-ass character played by Kick-Ass was when I was like, oh no, like, do we really have to go through this again? Like, it's just going through the motions.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to interrupt. First of all, let's talk spoilers here.
Yeah, this whole thing is going to be spoilers.
And although the fact that Bryan Cranston gets killed very quickly into the film is not necessarily a spoiler because it's given away in the credits, at least for me it was.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, Bryan Cranston, you know, I'm a big Breaking Bad fan. You have started to watch it?
I've seen the first season and it's really good, but I haven't gotten much farther.
It's basically the best thing ever.
You're goddamn right.
And Bryan Cranston, like, I don't know, maybe I have a man crush on Bryan Cranston.
That's okay.
He's so awesome.
He'll always be Tim Watley, the dentist from Seinfeld to me.
Oh, she's over at Dr. Sussman's office. Yeah, we find it fun to swap now and then.
Where he gasses people and then while they're under, he molests them. It's wonderful.
Anyway, so don't go watching this movie to see lots of Bryan Cranston. But you're right that I was like, oh.
I'll meet them down there myself. Put the safety doors on manual override. No, I cannot do that. Keep the doors open. My wife is still in there.
But when he leaves the movie, I felt like I had nothing to care about anymore. And I did like that storyline that he was the engineer of a nuclear power plant, and then he comes back and he's trying to figure out the mystery. And why not just keep him alive?
Look out! This monster's crushing everything.
Well, he's the only one with any real sufficient motivation to be so invested in what's happening.
Yeah.
With his wife, played by Juliette Binoche, for 2 seconds, she dies, and it's like that's when I was really like into the movie. And then the minute that's done, because then it's like, well, first of all, this is also, they should call this movie Cloverfield 2, featuring a cameo by Godzilla, because he's barely in it, which would be fine if there was the human elements to connect with. It's like the polar opposite of the director's last movie, which was called Monsters, it's just basically a human drama set with this backdrop of there's giant aliens on Earth, and occasionally they will attack cities or attack wherever you are. That's just sort of like in the background. And there are little elements of that in this that I liked. I thought was clever. Like most of the monster fights early in the movie, you just see them on like the news. Like you don't really see what happens. Yeah. I can see some people being frustrated by that, but I thought it was clever. I liked that. And then it makes the ending more satisfying when it's, all out destruction. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to tease the monsters, then there has to be something else interesting happening.
Some convenience factor too, like Bryan Cranston's son just happens to grow up to be in the military, and he just happens to be a bomb disposal technician.
He has one very specific skill that they need later on, and apparently he's the only one in the Navy or the Army that can do it.
Yeah, and then his wife is a nurse, and it was like Aunt May from Spider-Man as the nurse in the hospital.
It's like it has nothing to do with anything.
Right, and it's like Honolulu is destroyed in the first part of the movie, and he saves a little boy on a train, and then at the end they show Honolulu and it's like utterly decimated, and they pan down and he's like, "Excuse me, this little boy has lost his parents." It's like, "Sir, we have bigger problems to deal with.
Thousands of people are dead and their city's destroyed."
I'd like a forwarding address from this little boy so I can get my G.I. Joe back. It's possible it's radioactive, but I'd like it back anyway.
The son just happens to be on the bridge when Godzilla shows up, and then he just happens to be on the bus that has the one driver that's going to try and get everybody out of this. It was all just so trite.
But, you're dealing with a story that takes place on a global scale, and you don't want to introduce too many characters, you don't want to have too few,
yeah.
And you want them to interact with the story that's happening. So that's why I'm saying it's a challenging script to write and work in all those check marks, which is what we usually complain about.
Yeah.
But when it comes to a movie like this, I can kind of understand like the struggle that they have to go through to write a script like this, because you have to hit all those check marks.
Yeah.
Can't do a movie about Japanese scientists in a laboratory yelling about Godzilla.
Yeah.
And if you take it in the other direction, you end up with Roland Emmerich, where you start having the wisecracking sidekick,
yeah.
the wacky cab driver character who's going to drive the cab into Godzilla's mouth. You don't want that kind of shit in there, but I think they could have tweaked a couple little things in this, kept Bryan Cranston around, centered the story around him, not had the son in there at all.
Yeah.
You didn't even need him. I don't know.
Well, if you're gonna do I think I would have liked to have seen a movie, because basically nothing anyone does in this movie affects what happens with Godzilla at all. They keep shooting at him and nothing happens, and then he just fights the monsters. Like, the human characters are completely pointless. So I think I would have rather seen something that was more dealing with people that are affected by the things that are happening, rather than trying to affect what's happening in the story and failing completely. Like, focus on a family, they're in a town, and Godzilla shows up, and how do they deal with that? You know, keep it smaller in that respect.
That's too abstract for a Hollywood mainstream
That's not
film,
that
though.
bizarre, though, is it?
Yeah. It would have been better,
Yeah.
but you can't tell an art house independent family story with Godzilla as the backdrop for the big budget Godzilla movie. The big cows eating popcorn are not going to like that. You'll like that.
But are they gonna like Kick-Ass just be incredibly boring?
Yes. Yes. Because he's the demolitions expert. I need to know how to set the bomb off.
I'm just so tired of those storylines.
Let's talk about the monster.
Let's talk about the monsters. What do you think about the monsters? That's in talking about the monsters, we can talk about this too. I remember we were saying this after the movie. It's sort of a catch-22. You want to do, like, I can see people, especially the end of the movie, the last 20 minutes, just Godzilla stomping the city, fighting monsters. It's so great. But it's like, it's if you ever wanted to see a realistic Godzilla movie, like, this is it, as far as the way that stuff is portrayed. But at the same time, isn't the charm of those movies guy in dumb rubber costume stomping on cardboard buildings?
No, I would give this movie, like, if you just want a real simple breakdown, I would give it like a B plus. Mainly because of all the monster stuff. There's lots of cool visuals. I really like the shot when Godzilla's swimming underneath the battleship, and you can kind of see him in the water. There's a lot of cool stuff, and the water displacement. I noticed in the '98 one, Godzilla dives into the water and it's just like a splash. But in this one, it's just like whatever he does affects the water around it, and it knocks the battleships over, and it causes flooding and all this stuff. And those kind of little touches were nice. And he shoots fire out of his mouth, which was awesome.
Because all the visuals, like you said, are great, and it really does a good job of giving you a sense of scale and size of these monsters. That's another thing in the Roland Emmerich one. He keeps changing size throughout the movie.
Yeah.
But this one really, I mean, he feels immense, and all the effects are handled really well.
So Jay, Godzilla, 2014.
Yes.
Would you recommend it?
I'm really on the fence. It's
Why you gotta be a hater?
I'm not a hater. I wanted to like this movie. It's a 50-50 for me. Like, I would say if you are willing to put up with a completely uninteresting story and long stretches of nothing to care about to get to these genuinely awesome monster fights, it's worth seeing. Definitely in the theater.
I'm going to go with a recommendation on this because it is a very well-made movie. It's not stupid. The monster stuff's great, especially if you like Godzilla or even have a passing interest in Godzilla. Yeah, if they had beefed up the human element, made it a little less hokey in certain aspects, it would have been a really great movie. It's a good summer movie. That doesn't nauseate you. I was thinking of Man of Steel and just being like, oh God, when does it stop? I didn't feel that way during the monster fights. No. I was like, ooh, you know, this
There's
is
a fair
great.
amount of destruction, but it feels like it has some weight to it.
And it feels like it has a purpose because Godzilla movies are about creatures destroying cities.
Right.
Superman shouldn't destroy cities, even directly or indirectly.
Mike, everyone destroys cities now.
That's right.
Every movie.
Godzilla. Only in cinemas.
Well, in addition to seeing the 2014 Godzilla, we decided it would be a brilliant idea to rewatch the 1998 Godzilla.
What's one CGI made dumb easy? When you could do limited dumb, you had to have entertainment built around it.
Yeah, I saw, we'll call it 98 Godzilla. I saw it in the theater, and all I remember is that it was raining.
The whole movie.
Yeah, no, it was raining that day I saw it in the theater. I don't remember anything about the movie.
That was pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Thanks.
Yeah, I also saw it in the theater, and this was a time like everybody loved Independence Day, and even then I was like, I don't get it. This movie Independence Day is terrible. And so then this movie came out from the same director, and it's like, I don't want to see that.
We make popcorn movies. We love popcorn movies. When you have that kind of passion for the films you make, there's a chance that that passion may become infectious.
I noticed something was terribly wrong with Stargate.
I never saw Stargate.
That was 94, 96 was Independence Day, 98 was Godzilla. Roland Emmerich takes a year break in between each film to recharge his bad.
The new Godzilla has its issues, but the parts where it needed to work, the things it needed to get right, it got absolutely right. This doesn't get anything right.
It's really bad.
Really bad is an understatement. This new Godzilla movie does Godzilla correctly. I don't know what the Roland Emmerich one was, but I think he was trying to make another Jurassic Park.
My whole concept was based on totally changing Godzilla.
He's too fast.
I wanted to start new, I had the idea for Godzilla like yesterday, and how would you do like a movie like this today?
There's a lot of clear examples of why that's the case, but it didn't follow the Godzilla formula at all. I don't even know, was Godzilla radioactive in his...
In the Roland Emmerich one?
Yeah.
No, it's just big... Oh wait, no.
They showed nuclear
There's some offhand comment about it, but it doesn't have much to do. It's just
like
just a cheap backstory.
It's like, there he is. We made him with... Oh, I know what it was. It was like they showed lizards crawling around. So a nuclear bomb test mutated a lizard's DNA.
Okay.
Because Matthew Broderick's character he was the worm expert. And I actually joked about that because it starts with him with headphones on, like studying worms.
Yeah.
At Chernobyl, right? I
don't know.
Don't you remember? It's yesterday.
I forgot.
He's at Chernobyl and he's studying earthworms, and they're getting twice as big or something like that. So the military lands a helicopter and they're like, "You're an earthworm expert. We need you." A Godzilla attacked a fisherman's boat, and we think that somehow you could help because you're some guy studying earthworms. So get involved with this plot.
Yeah.
But my work here isn't finished.
It is now.
Yeah, so Godzilla isn't an ancient creature. I think he's just like a Komodo dragon or something that got mutated by radiation. And then he shows up and he has to nest, and he picks New York to nest his eggs.
For some reason.
Godzilla should have nested all of his eggs on some completely remote island somewhere, instead of the most populated city on the planet. Go ahead, put your comments on. New York technically isn't the most populated city on the planet. It's this. Go ahead and write it. So then Matthew Broderick's wife, Sarah Jessica Parker, emerges from the water and starts smashing New York City.
Yes.
And then wacky hijinks happen with characters from Friends, and then they discover that Godzilla has made small velociraptor eggs in Madison Square Garden, and they have a wacky scene where they run around.
Well, like I had said, every character is the comic relief. Matthew Broderick is the nerdy scientist guy, and no one can pronounce his last name, and that's apparently hilarious. Kathy Griffin shows up as redhead woman, and
she makes unwarranted sexual advances towards Matthew Broderick.
Yes.
And she says, "This is where Ferris Bueller gets off."
Everyone, the entire cast of The Simpsons shows up for some reason. They're all in this. Hank Azaria is in it. Harry Shearer, and Lisa Simpson, whatever her name, or Bart Simpson. Nancy Cartwright, yeah.
I think your story just walked by the window.
So they all show up for some reason. Maybe Roland Emmerich is just a big fan of The Simpsons. It would explain why he populated his movie with cartoon characters, I guess.
Yeah, so the entire cast of The Simpsons is in this movie about Godzilla. And I don't care. You don't want to put Harry Shearer anywhere near the voice of a news reporter.
Yes, yeah. You're just going to think of The Simpsons.
Hello, New York. Today at 5, we'll ask Fat Pat, when will this rein in?
However, less dumb than most Roland Emmerich movies, believe it or not.
Oh my God.
I'll go ahead and make that bold statement.
Okay.
So Godzilla swims to New York, and then he's as tall as a skyscraper, but somehow fits in the sewer system.
Yeah, you were never clear on the scale of Godzilla, but the army keeps losing him somehow.
Yeah.
And then they have a scene where he's running through the streets and they have the helicopters shooting at him. For some reason, the helicopters are at the same level as the buildings around them, which doesn't seem like it would be very safe, but that's what they do.
No, and then, yeah, they fire missiles at Godzilla. The missiles move so slowly that Godzilla just goes like this.
He just slowly leads out of the way.
They blow up the Chrysler building on accident.
You know, if you're gonna lure Godzilla somewhere, can't you lure him somewhere away from the city?
And then shockingly, they say we've got to keep him on the island.
Make sure the damn thing doesn't leave the island.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We don't want him getting out of here. It's like, you do want him getting out of there. Have him go run into the farm belt and lay his eggs there, where there's one farmhouse every 10 miles instead of a densely populated city. But that's their plan. And so they lay a big pile of fishes for Godzilla to eat, and then to lure him and shoot him.
Look at the fish symbol!
They really got to spell it out together. Yeah. Then when that fails, they do the exact same plan later, which causes even more destruction.
Yeah, the only difference, it's the exact same scene. Godzilla's running through the streets and the helicopters are shooting at him. Only now there's more helicopters.
Oh no, there's 15 times more helicopters! Oh my God! That's ridiculous!
Him and M. Night Shyamalan, how do they keep making movies? I'll tell you what, it involves a profit margin.
Well, the difference is Roland Emmerich movies always make money. M. Night Shyamalan's movies keep failing, but he keeps getting work. Maybe he gives really good blowjobs.
The suck sense?
The whole movie takes place in the rain, so they could conceal how shitty the CG looks. This was only a couple years after Jurassic Park, and I know people bring this up all the time, but the CG in Jurassic Park still looks good to this day.
Yeah, it's amazing. That T-Rex looks flawless, and that was from, what was that, 92?
94?
94?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, and I remember there was a part when we were rewatching this Godzilla where when they're in Madison Square Garden and all the Velociraptor Godzillas are running towards them. And I noticed that like the feet in one part, like it didn't look like they were touching anything. It was just sort of floating there. It was all shiny and ugly. And the design of Godzilla sucked. They just wanted to make generic dinosaur monster.
Yeah, his posture is very Tyrannosaurus Rex, and that's clearly influenced by Jurassic Park. It's like, well, the T-Rex was the star of Jurassic Park. Let's do it bigger.
Yeah.
And then what can we do? Oh, let's make Godzilla. That's a recognizable title. And so.
Roland Emmerich really wants to be Spielberg.
But you know what?
He wants to make movies with that same sort of feeling, and he is just the worst at it. So, Mike, would you recommend Godzilla 1998?
Of course not.
Do you remember the cartoon? There was a cartoon based on this movie.
Did you ever do Taibo?
Pump it. Pump.
Do you remember that fad of kickboxing?
Billy Blanks, right? Was that his name?
Yeah.
I never did Taibo, no.
Yeah. I didn't either.
Pump it. Pump. Pump. Bam. Go. Ready? Now double punch.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Pump it.
5, 6,
Pump it.
7, 8.
Pump it.
1, 2,
Pump it.
3, 4,
Pump it.
5, 6,
Pump it.
7, 8.
Pump it.
1,
Come on.
2,
Pump those fists.
3,
Work it.
4,
Pump it.
5.
Pump it.